was in London that I got the telephone that something happened, but I did not pay attention because we often heard this sort of news.
Masood had informed the West of the growing threat of Al-Qaeda and the Taliban.
Masood continuously warned them, especially remember that when the ship in Yemen was blown up, and Masood called me that, haven't they realized yet?
2 days after he was killed, the September 11th attacks happened in the United States, killing almost 3,000 people.
We thought that, well, he was so right. He was so right. And that time we thought that the US government was so naive not to know that that was happening. Something what Masood warned that the things is coming from inside Afghanistan, from Taliban and from Pakistan. That's so naive not to hear. Thousands of people have died there, only not to listen to someone who was in the field.
Osama bin Laden entered in a formal alliance with the Taliban in the spring of 1997, met with Mullah Omar in Kandahar and agreed to carry out reconstruction projects and to send fighters to the Taliban's front line. Taliban's conquest of Afghanistan in 1996 had been an unexpected turn of events for Al-Qaeda, but by mid-1997, Al-Qaeda's leadership seemed convinced that the Taliban's state-building project was a project worth supporting. When Al-Qaeda decided to expand their organization in 1998, their alliance with the Taliban turned out to be fruitful. Al-Qaeda's decision to build an organization under the Taliban did face certain challenges. First, the Taliban put restrictions on bin Laden's propaganda campaign. This meant that bin Laden could not openly take responsibility for terrorist attacks, call on people to come to Afghanistan to train. In the end, this did not seem to hamper Al-Qaeda's ability at drawing recruits to Afghanistan. Over time, Al-Qaeda developed a network of professional recruiters in the Gulf and enlisted charismatic Saudi scholars to talk warmly about Taliban and Al-Qaeda. These efforts contributed directly to recruitment from the Arabian Peninsula to Al-Qaeda's camps between 1999 and 2001. Another challenge was that Al-Qaeda's frontline participation with the Taliban was controversial. The Taliban was not fighting a foreign occupier, but the Tajik commander, Ahmad Shah Massoud, who was a fellow Muslim and a hero from the Afghan-Soviet War. Many of the recruits coming to Afghanistan were reluctant to believe that fighting Massoud was a legitimate jihad. To minimize these controversies, Al-Qaeda propped up the Taliban's Islamic Emirate as a true Islamic state with Mullah Omar, its legitimate leader. Bin Laden's political support to the Taliban, including his public oath of allegiance in 2001, may be seen as part of this effort. Despite minor challenges, Al-Qaeda's alliance with the Taliban had enormous benefits for its organization-building project. Al-Qaeda enjoyed freedom of movement within Afghanistan. They were allowed to run training camps in Kandahar and Kabul. The Taliban's front gave opportunity to test and train cadre for Al-Qaeda's organization. It was easy for recruits to enter and exit Afghanistan, both through official and unofficial border crossings. Crucially, Al-Qaeda believed that front lines would continue to exist in the region, even after the Taliban conquered all of Afghanistan. Abu Hafs in 1997 seemed convinced that the Taliban would be willing to extend the jihad to Central Asia after Afghanistan was won. Taliban's extension of support to the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan in 1999 was another hint in that direction. We do not know if the Taliban would actually have pursued a strategy if they had remained in power. There were certainly elements within Taliban's leadership who would have opposed an expansion policy. But this is beside the point. Al-Qaeda adjusted their strategies to their own perceived reality. In their view, the Taliban state had potential to become a launchpad for Islamic revolution elsewhere, not least in the neighboring countries with suppressed Muslim populations, such as Central Asia. All of this made the Taliban state the perfect location for Al-Qaeda's organization building project. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda's planning for international terrorist attacks continued unabated. Planning for the USS Cole attack started in late 1998. And planning for 9/11 started in early 99. The terrorist campaign followed a familiar pattern of gradual escalation in both ambition and violence. The activities run parallel to, but organizationally separate from, Al-Qaeda's efforts at building a resilient organization in Afghanistan. By mid-2000, Al-Qaeda had opened their flagship training facility, Al-Farouk, in Kandahar. They had succeeded in setting up a recruitment and facilitation network in the Arabian Peninsula. They had expanded into a service office in Afghanistan, organizing the influx of recruits and offering training and support to other militant groups, even those that did not explicitly support bin Laden's far enemy strategy. Bin Laden experienced the continued support of the Taliban regime, especially in late 1999, when the Taliban decided to protect bin Laden even when faced with UN sanctions. In mid-2000, Al-Qaeda was a competent organization, even thinking of itself as a government in exile. Al-Qaeda's competence was boosted when the United States failed to respond to the USS Cole attack in October of 2000. Al-Qaeda was prepared that the United States might carry out a new set of missile strikes against Al-Qaeda's camps, similar to what they had done in 1998. But nothing happened. The USS Cole attack provoked no U.S. response at all. This was probably contributed to convincing bin Laden that his strategy was working, that the United States was becoming weaker by the day.